Tom, thanks very much. I don't know what you think, but I think that's a fabulous, inspiring story. Just blown away by some of your schemes. I wasn't aware about Plymouth. So does the property sector need to be more creative? Mark, at Hammerson, beg your pardon. How much repositioning is on your mind, if at all?
Yeah, well, clearly the property industry needs to keep on being more and more creative. I think the property industry has always been creative. Tom's just shown some great examples, but the best throughout the decades, the property industry has been creative and continues to reposition and to evolve places. Certainly for Hammerson, it's a key theme in looking at some of the developments that we're undertaking right now. We're really excited about places, well, the things we've done the last 12 months, Leeds, Victoria Quarter, a really wonderful, inspiring space modelled on a contemporary take on a Victorian arcade, which is this kind of thing that inspires, it excites, it creates desirability for shoppers who enjoy that space, makes them feel special. And that type of example for us is what goes to the heart of being creative and making these places a little bit different.
Do you need to consider any form of mixed use if you're in a prime location, or can you just sort of coast along with shiny shopping centres, predominantly retail? Yeah,
look, we are always very aware that we're part of a master plan. We have to work closely with all of our local authority partners, our adjoining partners, and we want to see the right mix of retail, of residential, of leisure, of commercial. We're clearly spending a lot of time right now on Brent Cross, and for Brent Cross, which is will be a fantastic development. We aim to start middle of next year. That's not just a shiny shopping centre. That's 7,500 new homes. It's 4 million square feet of offices. It's a new Thameslink station 8 minutes away from the shopping centre. It's a place. I mean, it's a place, and all those uses need to work together and sustain one another.
So Grant, tell us a little bit about your strategy. How do you decide which site will work, and how are you funded?
So how we decide, we go into sites. So although we don't come from a retail, we're most certainly in the office, but we took a disused Wickham's building in East London, which had been derelict for 60 years. It was an old department store. And we come at it from a point of being creative. What can we do to place make? If we're going to have 1,000 people working from that space, what do we need to do to ensure that those people can eat, drink, socialize? And we come at it from the creative part, which is some of our partners, British Land, taking disused, really big lobby areas and actually creating beautiful workspaces which breathe life into buildings. So for us, it's a fun way of taking something which is a typically boring sector, which is the office space, and turning it on its head a little bit and having a bit of fun at the same time.
And how are you funded?
So we're privately funded, but we have amazing partners. So British Land is one of our partners, Grover Estates is one of our partners, and we now have moved into universities. So Trinity College, Imperial College have privately funded us to build innovation centres, workspace hubs in their property portfolios.
And tell me a little bit about your schemes then, Ben. Of course, Silvertown is your big one, isn't it?
Yes, I think on the creativity point that everybody wants to be more creative, but we're also being forced to be more creative. So to get a big brand, a big global brand like an Alibaba or a Google, you have to be more creative to win these opportunities, otherwise they go elsewhere. So developers are being dragged to be more creative. And I think one of the temptations is that I think we're all creative in our own way. We all have smartphones and we're taking photos and sharing on social media. Some people think they need to outsource the creativity, but we feel actually keep that in-house. So everybody here can brief a creative placemaking brief and have it written really well. So on the creative front, everybody needs to be creative to meet these brands and have them taking a nice long lease within your scheme. But it's also for us not about the buildings. We find it's all about the people. So we can build really lovely, architecturally beautiful buildings, but it's what's happening in between with the people and those interactions that really matters. And the brands that we speak to, and my job is to speak to brands like that, it's all about the community and the people, why they select a place, and they buy it emotionally, not basically based on the physical.
To what extent do you think there's a lack of innovation within the industry as a whole, that valuers and surveyors sort of stick to the same old tried and tested formula?
Yeah, so something called prop tech, which I'm sure you're all aware of, is racing up behind us and is going to catch up and change nearly every process that traditional property developers have been working on for the last 100 years. We've been working on buildings for over 60, 70 years with our chairman, Sir Stuart Lipton, and we are embracing these changes, and brands are moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour, we're moving at 50 miles an hour. 6 months within a brand window, a lot can happen. 6 months in our world, and I used to be in the marketing side of the brand world, 6 months is a long time. Within the development world, you might not do anything in 6 months. Still waiting for things. So I think we have to move quicker, and we have to align ourselves with the speed at which the brands are moving, and take them on a journey with us.
Can you give us a few case studies of what's worked and possibly what hasn't, and what sort of funding and resources are needed to do the sort of things that you're doing?
Yeah, so we are not saying that I cheat, but there's an easy win. So book a flight to East Berlin, go to 4 or 5 curated areas. Doesn't matter, so we look at spaces, it doesn't matter whether it's a high street or shopping center or a brand embassy, like we see Samsung doing in New York. Take people on a journey. We've taken mayors, we've taken stakeholders, councillors to places like Tallinn, East Berlin, for a couple of days to say this is what's happening within retail. There are multiple curated experiences within one place. And to get people on that journey really helps with some of the other political side of we face within property. But get people on a plane or go to some of these brand experiences and take them on that explanation of what is a brand experience, what's happening with hairdressers, coffee shops, gaming and esports centres, VR, within these curated areas. But it takes time. I've spent 3 years taking people on a journey of what is a brand experience. Brands understand it, but some of the guys in the property world take a little bit longer to learn these lessons.
Grant, I don't know if you've been over to Berlin as well, but tell me a little bit about curation. This word keeps cropping up, and is there a danger that, it's curation by spreadsheet, that it's one size, one format fits all?
No, not at all. When it comes to our business, we're agnostic to sector, so we have hundreds and hundreds of businesses working from one location, and you have to actually do the curation part, and it's, if you go to a beautiful museum, you actually go to that space that's had that love, care and attention put into it, and it makes it a wonderful experience. We look at what we do is very similar. We curate our membership, we curate the buildings, we curate what happens around the area, because you have to control the environment that people are coming into so that they remain sticky to your brand, sticky to the location, and stay, grow and thrive.
Keep hearing this word placemaking. It sounds like a real buzzword at the moment, but what does it actually mean, Mark? What does it mean for Hammerson?
Well, it's a combination of all the things we've been talking about here, and actually the curation point is, I think, a really important one in terms of giving a place a heart and giving it a sense of community. I'm going to use another example. It's interesting. Our team over in Dublin, led by Simon Betty, we started talking about an idea earlier this year, which we all thought was a little bit crazy. It involved Dermot Gavin, Housewife's favourite gardener, recreating his Chelsea flower show garden, the Garden of Pure Imagination, and putting it in Dundrum Shopping Centre. And we thought, okay, give it a go. And it's been fantastic. It was a fantastic event. It drew in all sorts of people who wouldn't otherwise have come. They've come to the scheme. They've enjoyed having a meal, doing a bit of shopping, meeting their friends, all the things you'd expect from a place. It's a really difficult thing to give a definition to, but it's a combination of all these things that just makes a great community where people want to come, want to be inspired, and for us, where more happens.
For you too, is that the same? Placemaking is at the heart of everything?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're taking an area which is virtually derelict or disused, you actually have to bring those services in, and it comes at a simple point like that. But once you've got hundreds, then thousands of people coming to that place a day, you have to actually think about what is the customer journey, what is that experience, from them getting off public transport or coming from their cars, what is that user experience? So for us, that's what the curation really starts from. So we actually look at an area, and for our business, we've really looked at Crossrail and what has that meant for our growth, and when people start to change behavior and how they travel, and our planning comes from that part.
Obviously, you two are predominantly London-based. But when you talk about placemaking, presumably you have to think, and the same with you, Tom, what is the fundamental point of a place? There's got to be disposable income. If people, are struggling, can't afford housing, getting a foot on the jobs ladder, then some might say, well, forget about nice brands. You might as well just build a few supermarkets and make it just a nice green place for people to live.
Yeah, so our thought on that is that if you Google Apple and Village Green and Town Square, the whole thing's gone 360. So now they want to build village greens and town squares instead of stores. They're not going to call them stores anymore. They're going to be called town squares. So they're replacing a church and a library with something relevant for a new audience. So for us, it doesn't matter where you are in the north, south, Scotland, Wales, by doing placemaking, and it doesn't have to be that expensive, you're saying we're doing something relevant for this audience that isn't just buying things within spaces. And what's relevant in Huddersfield might be different to what's relevant in Liverpool. But you're thinking about what's relevant to that audience, and you're saying to them, we're a brand. So we're talking to other retail brands, but we're a brand in our own right, and we're actually thinking about what you need and want in a place, and it's not just buying things.
But what would you do if you went to some of our struggling town centres, and we all know, where they are? How do your ideas really translate to places that perhaps need the most help?
Go on, Tom. You're good with struggling town centres.
Yeah, I mean, a number of our schemes are in very struggling areas, and for some reason we always tend to end up in those lowest 10% of wards. But actually, I think to suggest that actually people living in rich environments in the southeast deserve good placemaking, and people who live in poor environments in the north don't, is patronising and just totally wrong.
But it's how you define, placemaking.
And actually, I think placemaking is not difficult. I mean, it's actually quite straightforward. It's about beautiful places that we all enjoy coming to. And what does that mean? That means it's good architecture, first of all, for the buildings. It means the buildings have got a good relationship with the public space. It means there's some public space, be it parks or gardens or squares, whatever it might be, for people to come and enjoy. It means that actually places designed around people rather than around cars. And you go out and you can see some parts of Liverpool that are great places and some parts that are awful places. Conversely, I'll tell you exactly what bad placemaking is big roads like the Strand outside here, is buildings that come down to ground without any retail or active uses, you have blank walls. It's windswept long streets without any fenestration or gaps in there. And we all instinctively know actually what's good and bad. And what we need to do is we need to hire great architects and great planners and great designers to make sure that what we're building is actually adding something back positive to the street and to our towns and cities, rather than just looking inwards, as has happened too many times in the past.
And don't build ivory towers, because public realm is important. It's the idea that you can just spend 15 million quid on a fountain and a bit of paving, job done.
And it's not about spending money, and it's not even about height. You can have some great placemaking around big towers, and you can have some great placemaking around bungalows. And it's not necessarily about money. It's about thought and about putting people first. And that's people, both the users of your building and the people outside going past it. And actually, if you start with that, it's not very difficult, in my view, to actually deliver.
So, sounds easy, but how do you reassure investors that you're not putting their capital at risk when you get these schemes funded?
Yeah, I mean, Tom hit a nail on the head earlier. It's about a long-term view, and I think the right investors need to have a long-term view. A lot of these things you've heard about today, they take upfront investment. You look at what Amazon are doing to grow their business. It's all about investment to get growth, and in developments and placemaking, you need to be upfront. So you need an investor who shares that vision. How do you convince them? I think you convince them by a very clear vision, a very sound vision, very well thought through, lots of data analytics, lots of research involved in that. I think increasingly investors are probably accepting the fact, certainly in the retail space, that it's not all, well, it's certainly not all about a 10, 20, or a 15, 25-year lease. We're having to find ways to get comfortable with shorter leases, which absolutely make sense when you're managing a place. It's like a big department store. So I think all those things combined give an investor confidence. But each one of these schemes is got to be judged on its own merits.
Do you think big institutional money can get interested in these sorts of schemes? Because they tend to want to be in the biggest, best prime locations.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I think increasingly those big prime locations, there's a lot of institutional money chasing those. So there's only so many opportunities. So I think as those opportunities become more scarce, then yeah, I mean, an exciting project with a great vision can certainly attract institutional money. But there's also obviously other crowdfunding, other alternative methods of funding which can equally work.
Grant?
And for our business, we've seen placemaking actually work against us. So we only take long-term views, and I agree with your point there. You have to take a 15-year plus viewpoint. We took a building that was sold for 12 million. We did the placemaking, and then 3 years later it was on the market for 42. And the people that bought that had to recoup their investment. I fundamentally believe the leasing model is dying, and flexible now is the way forward. We see big companies now wanting to take that lease liability off their balance sheets and moving. So I think for us, the reinvention of spaces is really at the tip of the iceberg in terms of how we can generate life back into schemes that otherwise have been disused for a period of time.
I mean, retail's been seen as a bit of a one-trick pony, hasn't it? Do you think there can be a sort of a retail equivalent of what you guys are doing? Taking a space and doing something completely different, sort of retail-wise.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to the point on the investors and the point that Grant made about it's not an obligation anymore. It's an opportunity. So forget the spreadsheet and costs. Put it into a separate place for value. And investors know that placemaking creates long-term value. And it really frustrates us when people start selling off single plots, which kind of kills the whole plan, which is really frustrating. But the other thing I just wanted to add on that is placemaking never starts off and it's perfect. So don't be prepared to fail when you start a placemaking strategy. You're constantly learning, fail fast, try different things. And some of the best placemaking, like King's Cross, started off and it was a bit of a car crash. But over time, you need to invest your time and effort into making it work. But even people like John Lewis creating an apartment where people can stay, it might not work, but they're going to learn and apply and carry on learning until it gets better and better.
But how important is retail within that space?
So for us, it's about emotional than the rational. So you don't buy anything, whether it's a pair of shoes or a watch, unless you bought into a brand emotionally. So for us, why wouldn't you have the gift shop at the front? And even people like the retailers Game are understanding this model now with immersive zones before you actually buy a video game. So for us, it's about experience, and then you buy on your mobile or you buy in the store. Brands are way ahead on this. They get it already. Developers are slowly learning that these spaces need to be versatile enough to be able to have an experience in before you actually start to get your checkbook out. So I think that is the biggest trend that we can adapt to, is letting people buy emotionally first.
Retail is no longer about buying stuff from shops. We spoke to 50 or so retailers earlier this year, and 75% of them say that in 5 years' time, they see the prime purpose of a shop as being one for an extension of a brand or providing services. So it's not just about buying stuff from the shop, and tying into that whole emotional piece, having an association with a brand that you ultimately might shop online with. You can only really get that through the physical space and experiencing that whole that whole curation that the retailers put on in this brand flagship. Actually, whether it's a flagship or it's a smaller independent who you've had a great experience with the owner.
So you can take a space and make it flexible for retail as you do with office space.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, everyone values that human connection part. So, you know, as much as we see this technological revolution and people moving online, actually, we see that people actually want that human interaction. So, you know, I don't necessarily see those spaces going underutilized. I actually see them being reinvented and actually new businesses now coming in to create that human experience and that human interaction.
And what sort of partnerships and joined up thinking is required if we go back to, you know, struggling town centres where there's this stalemate with the problem of empty shops and this sort of bottleneck of fractured ownership and so on, that there is this stalemate that exists. You can't solve that on your own. So what sort of partnership and joined up thinking, and how helpful or a hindrance are local authorities? I mean, Tom, how have you found it?
I mean, it's vital to get the local authority into work in partnership, and you know, every one of those schemes we've got partnerships with local authorities, and it does work. I mean, two good examples are one, the Northern Quarter in Manchester, which actually was an imagined term, it was an invented term with a vision to change this area of Manchester. Another one I visited last week was Folkestone, which was a very down a hill town, the docks closed, and with Roger Dehan with a big vision, working with the local authority and buying up some of the property and really pushing creative industries in there, he's transforming that whole town. So you can turn places around, you can do it. I believe retail is absolutely fundamental. As people walk past streets, the retailers are the first thing they see, and curating those retailers and having an interesting collection of those, and having not just the, what always frustrates me is any town UK with the same chain stores and the same fast food outlets and the same budget hotels. And actually it's finding independent retailers, it's working out what makes one town or city different from the other one, and encouraging that diversity to make every place special in its own way.
And to what extent are you all thinking about long-term, bigger picture, demographics, ethnicity, people moving more into urban areas? How much of these big things are on your mind when you're looking at potential schemes?
Yeah, I mean, clearly Hammerson focus on big urban schemes, and the urbanisation, continued urbanisation of, well, not just the UK, but the world is clearly going to require us to be more imaginative, more creative in creating these places. So Birmingham's a great example. I was at the West Midlands Combined Authority Development Conference couple of weeks ago. Really inspiring, as you've got all the different boroughs coming together to make the West Midlands, you know, punch above its weight on a global scale. So I think it's very much in our minds, the urbanisation. I think another point which we've not talked about is clearly the digital piece and thinking ahead, and how digital is increasingly affecting the way we think and the way we're all thinking here, and it's bringing together the physical and digital. And you know, some great examples that are out there right now. For our part, won't talk too much about it now because Catherine Mallock's going to be giving us a presentation on our stand tomorrow. But called Texica, find a style seeker, where one can take a photograph of an item. I could take a photograph of Tom's suit. I want to know where to buy that. I can look online and it'll tell me exactly where in my shopping centre that will be stored. I'm not sure I'd find one of those, but but you know what I'm thinking. I think using digital to create that customer experience in the context of a big urban environment is really important.
Someone is waving at me from the back of the room, which suggests we're almost out of time. I just want to quickly see if anyone in the audience has a question for our panel before we sort of wrap up. Gentleman over there, give him a microphone quickly.
Thank you. Jonathan Silver from Designers Silver & Co. I asked the same question to the last panel. What's going to be relevant in 15, 20, 25 years?
The big question.
Well, I'm happy to start. So we're seeing clustering starting to happen around deep technology. So we just opened a 40,000 square foot space in Cambridge, which focuses on augmented reality, artificial intelligence, drone research. So we're now investing into innovation hubs that will drive the future economy, that we don't actually know today what will happen in 5-10 years' time, but I think it'll be a digital growth, a technology growth that will enable us to do less supported by technology.
Ben, give us your crystal ball.
So for us, it's omni-channel marketing. Buy whatever you like, anywhere you want, at any time, using any device, not necessarily in store. And wayfinding, you don't need 20 shoe shops to be next to each other when you've got a smartphone and Google Maps. It could be a destination, and people traveling towards to destinations that are run down.
Showrooming as well?
Yeah, so we've got 5 million square feet of showrooms at Silvertown where I'm working, and we are really, it's a regeneration zone, it's derelict, and we are really confident that you can create destinations through experiences.
Tom, how do you see it?
I mean, urbanisation is growing, and cities are living, changing organisms that don't stay still. Regeneration is not something that starts and finishes, it continues. And that will continue. More people want to live in the city centre. People will become less dependent on the car, and people will become more important, cars less important, which I think is a very good thing. Most of the places we know and love are places designed for people, be it a medieval village or Venice or wherever, rather than for cars. And people want to socialise more, so there'll be more opportunities for people to have those random meetings in cafes, in parks, in bars, in the streets. And I'm a born optimist, so ever looking for improvements. Thank
you. And final thought from you, from Hammerson. I keep wanting to call you Hammerson. Where is Hammerson going to be in 20 years' time? What are the big themes for you?
It's, as I guess I've already said, the bringing together of digital and physical in a big way to make the customer experience, the customer journey, frictionless from where I sit at home and I desire to buy something, knowing I can go to a great place, I can have a fantastic time being there, I can be inspired, I can feel proud, I can eat with my family, I can meet friends, and I can do that in a way that's convenient because I'm being digitally led to the things that I would like to do.
Great, thank you. I think what joins you all together is the human connection. It's absolutely key. Thank you very much. I can't believe we're out of time already because we seem just to have skimmed the surface, but I hope everyone has found that as thought-provoking and inspiring as I have. So thank you very much. A round of applause for our panellists.